Hello and welcome to this video where I would like to show you what happens when a Grandmaster prepares for a game. As an example, I will take a game that I played last summer at the Spanish Team Championship. So the first thing that happens is that I check the games of my opponent. I check his repertoire. I was playing white and I check what he plays against both e4 and d4. This is something particular because I play both e4 and d4. I can also play c4, and it gives me the width that I can use at times to pose practical problems to my opponent. But more often, it just gives me the choice to choose what I feel best suited for the given occasion. So my opponent was playing the Najdorf and the Dragon against e4. I will show you that. So against d4, he was playing Sicilians. So knight f3, he was playing d6, and after d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3. Now he was playing either the Najdorf with a6 or the Dragon with g6. Okay, initial information. Then I checked what he played against d4. Against d4, he mostly played the King's Indian, but sometimes he also played the Grunfeld. So bishop g7, the King's Indian, or the Grunfeld with d5. And here starts the process of thinking. First and foremost, I was taking into consideration my own mood, my own preferences, and my own wishes, what I would like to have on the board the next day. So I kind of felt that I wasn't too keen entering sharp Sicilian territory, and that meant that I would probably stick to the closed openings after most likely d4. Then once that was decided, I will go d4. Then the second phase happens. What should I play against his preferred openings? Now several factors come into play. Again, for me, the most important is my own state, my own personal state, how I am feeling. Of course, throughout the years, I have accumulated a lot of opening analysis and I can play a lot of different systems against most openings. But I always have to take into consideration how willing I am to revise my opening preparation for several hours before the game and then go for mainstream theory. For example, I have had excellent results against the King's Indian, for example, with the Makagonov variation, now either h3 immediately or first knight f3, short castle, and then h3. But this requires a lot of memorization. There are a lot of lines that are tricky to navigate because there are different move orders, and they really do require frequent revisiting. This was not a problem when I was playing actively a long time ago because I was revising these every second game because King's Indian is a popular opening, so I could remember my lines fairly easily. But now in that particular moment before this game, I felt not really confident going deeply into the territory of the Makagonov, for example. The same applies to the other lines of the King's Indian that I have played. So that meant that I would likely not go for mainstream theory. So this second information already in mind, I felt, okay, I should probably go for something simpler. And here I had two systems at my disposal, which I have looked at earlier at certain stages in my career. So after d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, and now there are two systems that I was considering here. One was the system with b3 and e3. So after b3, now bishop g7, bishop b2, the system is very simple to play. And actually, I invite you to take a look at my old video on my YouTube channel, Preparing Against the King's Indian in 10 minutes, where I explain the benefits and the advantages of this system, which is, like I say, very simple to play, very simple to prepare. So I was looking at this seriously, considering it. So short castle e3, and now black has two options, most main options. One is the King's Indian option with d6, and the other one was the Grunfeld option with d5. And here came the issue when I was thinking about this. Against d6, I was quite content. I was happy to play these lines after bishop e2 and so on. But I wasn't that content facing the Grunfeld setup with d5. Mind you, my opponent could play both the King's Indian and the Grunfeld, so I had to prepare for both. So d5, now white should play c4, and very often what happens is that all these central pawns are exchanged after black prepares and pushes c5 at some point, and then we have this symmetrical pawn structure with open c and d files. They're quite okay, quite playable for white, nothing to say, but somehow, this feeling when you probably shouldn't go in that direction. And this is very important when you prepare for a game, that you should always be very much in touch with your own feelings and hunches, with your intuition, because you may prepare some line to very great detail and very well, but if you don't feel like playing it, then it likely won't turn out well. So I wasn't too happy with this. Then I turned my attention to the other system I could play, and that was system with g3. And after both sides fianchetto their bishops and castle, now we have again a split between the King's Indian and then the Grunfeld. So against the King's Indian with d6, I was now going to go b3. And the difference with the system with d3 is that obviously the white's bishop is fianchettoed, but also the other bishop is still on c1, and in some lines it goes to a3 in one go, especially after e5, d5, d5, when the a3, fa diagonal is open. And this poses certain practical problems. I was quite content with this. I was going to play this without any problems. I was happy to have this on the board. But what about the Grunfeld? What about d5? I wasn't sure, to be honest. So what happened is that in my preparation, I was checking two things. To go c4, which is the proper Grunfeld, where black has two main moves. One is to take on c4, the other one is to go c6. The very solid neo Grunfeld. Yeah. There's also knight c6, but that's rare. And the second option, which is b3, somewhat inspired by Carlsen's play against Nepomniachtchi in game 6 of their match in Dubai, where Carlsen played this fianchetto on the king side with b3, not playing c4 early on, not against the fianchetto by black, but against the Queen's Gambit decline setup with e6. So b3 was another move that I checked and prepared. So since I was happy with the King's Indian, either with lines with e3 or g3, my main question which line to decide lingered on my preference what to do against the Grunfeld setup with d5. So I was weighing these things, I was kind of trying to feel what would give me more practical chances. So eventually I decided to go for the fianchetto, like you see it on the board right now. And now this is very important. I often usually avoid making over the board decisions when it comes to opening preparation, which means that I always like to have my lines prepared, and I don't want to leave any doubt when I sit at the board. I know which lines I'm playing, and I'm just playing them with confidence and relatively quickly. But this time I couldn't determine which line I really wanted to play. So what I did was to prepare two lines in case my opponent goes for the Grunfeld in this position. And these are the lines that I just mentioned. One b3 here, or c4 here. So I postponed the decision to be taken over the board, but that did not mean that I did not prepare these lines. In fact, I was prepared for both. And this is important. In a way, I took away this doubt by being prepared for two options. Now, why did I leave this decision for the game? The reason was that I could not really pinpoint my feelings. Sometimes I can do this. Often I am able to do this when preparing for a game. I could feel what my opponent would not like, and I would just go in that direction. But this time I wasn't able to do that. So I said, fine, no problem. I'll just go at the game, go play the game, play the first moves, okay, observe my opponent carefully and try to feel him. Now, this is the important moment. When you sit at the board, most of the times you get a feeling for your opponent. And it's very important to try to use this feeling to your advantage. It will increase your chances of success. So when I was playing my initial moves, d4, knight f3, g3, and so on, I was observing my opponent, trying to get a feeling which of the two options that I have would pose more problems. So when we arrived at this position, I was hoping for King's Indian with d6, but no, he actually went for the Grunfeld option with d5. And this was the moment where this feeling which line would offer me better practical chances appeared. And I felt that I should go for b3. Somehow this was this intuitive feeling that this move b3 would pose more practical problems to my opponent and he would more easily drift. And guess what? It worked wonders. I will just show you the next 3 moves of how the game went, and for you to see how quickly this feeling turned out to be true. So after b3, obviously black has many moves. He went for c5, which is the most, let's say, critical one, challenging the center. I went for bishop b2. And here I mostly prepared cd4, knight d4, e5, or some other moves, and so on. This is the main line. However, after bishop b2, he actually played b6. And this suddenly is just fantastic for white. It's not something I prepared, but obviously over the board I could figure it out myself. And after a simple d takes e5, b takes e5, c4, there is suddenly a lot of pressure on black's position. So you see how, following my intuition, I immediately posed problems to my opponent and he erred immediately. Just after playing b3, he played the first normal move, but then started to play suboptimal moves. Now he again played the suboptimal move. He played bishop b7. I was expecting actually e6 in order to try to keep these hanging pawns, even though white has excellent play against them. He played bishop b7, which is pretty bad. And after cd5, he was saddled with a weak pawn on c5 and another one on a7 with basically no compensation for them. He took on d5 with the queen and so on. I had a better endgame. I played pretty well. I obtained a winning position. Then I messed it up, but eventually I still won the game. So I hope that this detailed explanation of how Grandmasters prepare, not all Grandmasters, but okay, it's my way of preparation, gives you some insights about how you should go about your own preparation. So, well, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, make sure you subscribe to my channel and, well, enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.